Archangel Michael says, "My dear child, this is not the time to look away, for the closing words carry a promise written in heaven. The final 2 minutes are filled with grace, and if you stay, you will feel the gentle release of blessings flowing into your spirit. Wait until the very end, for the treasure is almost here." A millionaire's last words carried your name, and the blessing meant for you still waits, glowing quietly in the light of heaven, hoping you will open your heart before it slips away. There are moments in the heavens when silence stretches across the stars like a veil, and yet even in that stillness, something stirs, something holy, something alive. It was in such a moment that the heart of a man, once surrounded by wealth, power, and all the comforts the world could offer, began to tremble. He had reached the end of his journey on earth, and as he lay with his breath slowing and his eyes growing dim, he did not speak of money or gold, nor did he ask for titles or for the walls of his mansion to be brought closer to comfort him. With tears that had never fallen before. Like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to keep God close to your heart. He whispered it like a prayer, like a confession, like a hope he never dared to speak when he had all he ever thought he wanted. And in that final breath, something beautiful happened. Heaven heard. The gates of mercy opened wider than the oceans. And a light came down, wrapping his spirit in a warm and soft embrace, not because of what he owned, but because of what he realized too late. Love. Grace. Jesus. You see, this man had everything, yet he lived like he had nothing. His heart was full of noise, deals, deadlines, parties, and plans. He smiled, but it was thin. He gave to others, but rarely gave of himself. He chased after the wind while the Spirit of God waited patiently, lovingly, never turning away, even when ignored. The love of Jesus knocked on the door of his heart 1,000 times, and he was too busy to answer. Until the end. But God, in his mercy, doesn't measure the beginning or even the middle. He sees the heart at its most honest, when it stands stripped of pride, when the soul knows the truth of its need. And in those final breaths, the man gave his heart to Jesus, not in fear, but in longing. His voice trembled not because he was afraid to die, but because he had finally found the one who never stopped loving him. And when he said your name, it wasn't random, it wasn't fading memory. It was a gift. A message. A blessing passed on. Because deep inside, he remembered someone who once showed him kindness. Someone who prayed for him without being asked. Someone who might not even know the impact they had. That someone was you. What if you discovered a tiny, walnut-sized brain region holds the secret to endless wealth and success? Recently uncovered by groundbreaking research and once buried in classified files, this frequency is now available to anyone ready to listen. Imagine replacing worry and struggle with a life of financial ease and freedom. Interested? Click the link in video description and comments below to unleash this hidden brainwave and start attracting wealth right now. You have been guided to this message for a reason, and if you turn away, the chance may not return. This is your time to step in. The angels took his whisper and brought it to the Father. And God, who sees all things clearly, smiled with tenderness. For he knew this wasn't just a moment of passing, it was the beginning of something else. A ripple of grace. A chain of mercy. a divine appointment that had waited patiently through the years. So now, heaven calls your name with warmth. Not to burden you, but to bless you. To tell you that your faith, no matter how quiet or tired it has become, still matters. That your prayers, though sometimes whispered in the dark, reached far deeper than you ever imagined. That your kindness, your patience, your unseen acts of love, they lit a path for someone else to find Jesus. And this is the part where heaven leans in close, holding its breath with hope, waiting for your heart to open fully, to receive not just the blessing left behind by a soul reborn, but the fullness of the love of Christ that never ends. You are not forgotten. You are not too late. This moment is not small. It is eternal. The love of Jesus is not earned by riches, fame, or perfect living. It is received in the quiet space where your heart whispers yes to Him, where your soul leans into grace instead of guilt. Jesus is here, not with condemnation, but with open arms. With healing. With hope. With that deep, soul-filling peace that no amount of money could ever buy. So hear this as gently and clearly as it can be said: God is not done with you. He is writing something new, something beautiful, something holy, and it begins with you listening, letting go, and opening your heart to His love again. Type 111 if you believe miracles are near. There is a blessing waiting, and it carries your name. Not just written in ink, but etched in light, in heaven's own script, passed through the hands of angels, carried from the heart of a man who finally saw the truth in his last breath. Archangel Michael says, "There are blessings written in heaven that bear your name, and even though they were once buried beneath time, distraction, and sorrow, they have never faded or been forgotten." The story continues, not in the halls of mansions or among the echoes of wealth, but in the quiet places where hearts are healing, where souls stretch toward the light without always knowing how. After the man's final breath, after his whisper drifted like incense into the eternal sky, something shifted. Not just for him, but for you. The angels moved with purpose, their wings stirring the air like wind through the trees. They carried not only the name he spoke, but the weight of all that had been left unsaid, all the kindness he should have given, all the love he had missed, and all the goodness you had planted in his life like tiny seeds scattered in faith. Heaven saw it all. Not one act of grace, not one moment of prayer, not one tear you shed in secret was overlooked. Everything you gave in love became part of a larger plan you couldn't yet see. And now, this blessing comes to you, not just because of what you did, but because of who you are. Because the heart that gave even when it was tired is the kind of heart God calls His own. Because the soul that believed in goodness, even when surrounded by hurt, is a soul that Jesus holds close. This is not about earning. This is about receiving. In a world that teaches you to be strong by building walls, God calls you to a different kind of strength, a gentle one, a holy one. The kind that chooses compassion when it would be easier to turn away. The kind that forgives even when the pain is deep. The kind that clings to hope when everything seems to fall apart. That strength doesn't make headlines, but it moves heaven. There are people who live with so much yet feel so empty, and there are people who have little in the eyes of the world yet carry the wealth of heaven in their hearts. You, beloved, are one of the latter. Whether you know it or not, whether you feel it or not, your heart has been an instrument of grace in ways that go far beyond what your eyes have seen. And God, who sees everything clearly, remembers. Always. This is why your name was spoken in the end. Not because the man wanted to leave you with material things, but because he wanted to leave you with something eternal. A confirmation. A holy echo. A reminder that the way you lived mattered. That your quiet love softened a hardened soul. That your faith planted roots even in rocky ground. He didn't understand it then, but in the end, he did. And he passed that understanding into your hands. What you hold now is not gold, not silver, not anything the earth can measure. It is a blessing born of redemption. A promise of restoration. A thread of holy light woven directly into your path. What if I told you financial freedom is not about working harder, but activating a dormant brain signal designed to draw abundance directly to you? Neuroscience proves this sound wave unlocks prosperity faster than any method known before. From unexpected cash to life-changing success, it's already helping thousands. Imagine looking back tomorrow wishing you had acted today. Do not let regret replace the miracle that is calling you right now. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on the ancient money wave and create the life you've always dreamed of today. The blessing may not arrive with noise or fanfare. It may come gently, in the form of peace that lasts longer than grief, or a sudden clarity that lifts the weight you've carried for years. It may be a healing in your family, a softening in your heart, a door that opens when you least expect it. However it comes, it is yours. But more than anything, it is Jesus who stands in the center of this moment, arms wide, eyes kind, voice soft. He does not point to your mistakes, he points to your potential. He does not recall your failures, he recalls your faith. And he calls you closer, not to burden you, but to carry you. Type Amen to trust God's plan for your life. Let this part of the story remind you that nothing is ever lost in the eyes of God. Not time. Not effort. Not love. What you gave still lives, and what is meant for you will always find you. There is no expiration on grace. The blessing that carries your name isn't about changing who you are. It's about reminding you of who you've always been. A child of God. A reflection of Christ's kindness. A vessel of hope in a weary world. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, the blessing that carries your name is still unfolding, like a flower opening in the warmth of the morning light, and the hands of heaven have not stopped reaching toward you with love that never fades." There is something sacred about the way God moves, quiet, slow by human standards, yet perfect in timing. He does not rush. He does not forget. And though you may have walked through seasons that felt dry, lonely, or confusing, He has never taken His eyes off you. The seeds you planted in faith, those silent prayers, those moments when you chose kindness over comfort, mercy over pride, were not lost. They were held in His hands, watered by His Spirit, and guarded until the time was right. This is that time. The man who whispered your name in his final moments didn't just speak it with his lips, he poured it out from his soul. It was more than a memory. It was a thank you he never knew how to say. A final gift. A release of something that had weighed on him for years. Somewhere in the depth of his life, you had offered him light. Perhaps a smile when he was cold. A word when he felt empty. A moment of grace when he didn't deserve it. He never forgot it, even when he acted like he had. And now that gift has returned to you. Multiplied. Holy. Wrapped in the presence of God Himself. This isn't about being seen by people. It's not about applause or recognition or being lifted up by the world. This is about the deeper truth, the truth that heaven knows your name, that your kindness mattered, and that the love of Jesus flowing through your life changed the direction of someone else's eternity. That truth is heavy with beauty. It humbles the soul. It quiets the noise of shame and fear. And it lifts your face toward the light again. You may not feel ready for a blessing. You may think you're too wounded, too tired, too far gone. But grace doesn't look for perfection, it looks for the willing. And Jesus, in all His gentleness, is not asking you to be strong for Him. He's offering to be strong for you. To carry what you can't carry anymore. To restore what was broken. To fill the empty places with peace so deep, you'll feel it in your bones. The enemy tries to tell you that it's too late. That you missed it. That your best years are behind you. But God says otherwise. God speaks in promises, not in regrets. He doesn't keep score, He keeps covenant. He remembers mercy. He rebuilds what others throw away. He turns ashes into beauty, and tears into songs. What was once buried, buried by time, by sorrow, by silence, is now being uncovered. Gently. Lovingly. As if heaven itself is brushing away the dust from something sacred. The blessing is not just for your needs. It is for your heart. For your healing. For your joy. It is the answer to prayers you forgot you prayed, or whispered so softly you wondered if God even heard them. He did. And He hasn't just heard. He has been working. Preparing. Holding back the storms that could have broken you. Lifting your name to His heart again and again. Writing new beginnings while you were still grieving old endings. He has seen every moment, every tear, every silent hope. And now, He moves, not because you earned it, but because He loves you. Type 1616 if you surrender to God's will. Let this blessing remind you that heaven's love isn't distant or cold. It is near. Personal. Intimate. It meets you where you are, and walks with you through every valley. This isn't the kind of blessing that fades or passes through like a fleeting moment. It is the kind that plants roots. The kind that holds you steady. The kind that draws you closer to the heart of Jesus. And so, if your heart feels tender now, if your soul is beginning to stir, let it. Let yourself believe that good things are still coming. That the best part of your story is not over. That the blessing with your name on it is real, and it has been waiting, not in frustration, but in love. Archangel Michael says, the blessing still bearing your name is drawing near, and though your heart may feel weary or unsure, the presence of God is moving gently, surrounding you with love that will never leave you. When the man who once lived behind walls of wealth and pride reached the final moments of his life, something in his spirit shifted. He had chased after many things, thinking they would bring meaning, thinking they would fill the silence inside him. But none of it lasted. Not the possessions, not the recognition, not even the relationships built on shallow ground. In the stillness before the end, it was not money that stayed with him. It was memory. It was mercy. It was your name. Somewhere along the winding road of his life, you gave him something he didn't know how to receive, a glimpse of God's heart through your own. You may not have known how much it meant. You may not even remember the moment. But he did. In a life filled with noise, that act of love rang louder than anything else. And it stayed with him until he finally turned toward the one who had been calling him all along. And now, heaven turns toward you. Not with demands, not with heaviness, but with deep affection. The kind of love that doesn't fade with time or crumble under pressure. The kind of love that remembers every soft word you've spoken, every quiet sacrifice you've made, and every time you chose light instead of bitterness, even when your own heart was hurting. What if everything you've been chasing, wealth, freedom, success, could be drawn to you automatically, simply by unlocking a secret brain wave hidden inside you? Once classified by intelligence agencies, this discovery is now available to the public, and it's changing lives instantly. Picture yourself debt-free, stress-free, and thriving. The window is open, but not forever, and every second you wait is wealth slipping from your hands, so grasp it now. Click the link in video description and comments below to awaken this money magnet frequency and watch abundance flow into your life today. You may not think you're worthy of a blessing. You may carry wounds that have hardened into silence. You may feel like too much time has passed, or too many mistakes have been made. But the blessing that's coming is not based on how good you've been. It's based on how good God is. He doesn't wait until you feel strong or flawless. He meets you right in the middle of your questions and fears and exhaustion. He reaches for you the same way he reached for the man in his last breath, with tenderness, not judgment. With arms ready to lift you, not scold you. And what you are receiving now is more than a reward. It is a reminder. A reminder that your life carries eternal value. That your quiet love has power. That heaven sees what no one else sees. When you sat with someone in their pain, when you gave without asking for anything back, when you prayed even when you felt empty, those moments mattered more than you'll ever fully know on this side of eternity. Type 2020 to claim joy and strength. There are blessings that bloom slowly, like a rose in early spring, opening petal by petal with care. That's what this is. A slow, steady unfolding of healing, of purpose, of favor that has been waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And now that moment is here. You are not standing in the same place anymore. Even if your surroundings haven't changed, your spirit is rising. Your heart is beginning to remember who it belongs to. Not the world. Not your past. Not your pain. But to the one who created you in love and still holds you in it. Jesus never lets go. Not when you wander. Not when you break. Not when you doubt. He holds on even when you don't feel it. And through it all, He has been preparing this blessing, not because of what others see in you, but because of what He sees. And He sees everything. You are cherished. You are chosen. And this blessing isn't coming to fix you, it's coming to restore you. To fill the places that feel hollow. To remind you that your life has always had meaning. That your story, even the painful parts, has been leading you to something sacred. Let this part of the journey be gentle. Let it wash over you like morning sunlight after a long night. Let it remind you that God's love doesn't skip over the wounded or the weary. It moves straight into the brokenness and brings beauty where there was only dust. The name spoken at the end of that man's life echoed through heaven. But it didn't stop there. It stirred something eternal. It released a blessing that now finds its way to you, still glowing, still warm, still waiting to be opened. And as it unfolds, know this: God is not giving you leftovers. He is giving you more than you ever expected, in ways you may not yet understand. Not to overwhelm you, but to gently lead you into the fullness of His love. Type Amen if your soul rests in God, and share this video with 5 people of faith to welcome blessings and miracles into your journey. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, the blessing that carries your name is no longer far away, it is near, like the hush of twilight before the stars appear, like the whisper of God that finds you in your quietest moments and tells you that you are still loved, still chosen, still part of something sacred." There are seasons in life that feel like long winters, where the heart aches beneath layers of silence, and every step feels heavy with things we never meant to carry. Pain becomes a quiet companion. Doubt grows in the corners of the mind. The days stretch on, and hope can feel like a memory more than a promise. But even in those seasons, God is working. Even when your soul feels numb, His love remains steady. The man who left this world with your name on his lips had lived much of his life chasing the wrong light. He followed comfort, not peace. Applause, not purpose. But in the end, as the veil between heaven and earth began to thin, all of that faded. And what remained was truth, simple, eternal, unshakable truth. He saw clearly. He saw the kindness that had marked him years before, the one who had offered a glimpse of something greater, the one who lived not by what the world celebrates but by the quiet, steady light of Christ. Type 222 if you know God is with you. And in that moment, your name became more than a memory. It became a key that unlocked a blessing, one not forged by gold or earned by deeds, but written by God's own hand, waiting for the right time to be revealed. And that time, beloved, is now. This blessing is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't come to impress or to overwhelm. It comes like healing rain on dry ground. It comes like a hand held out after a long fall. It comes softly, but it carries power. Power to restore what you thought was too far gone. Power to remind you that you never walked alone, not for one moment, even when the road felt endless and the night stretched long. You are seen. Not as the world sees, through filtered lenses and passing praise, but as heaven sees. Every scar you carry, every burden you've shouldered, every choice you regret, none of it scares God away. In fact, it's where He draws closest. Jesus, gentle and full of mercy, doesn't wait for you to be perfect. He comes to where you are. He kneels beside you. He stays. And now, He brings this gift, not wrapped in riches, but in redemption. Not stamped with a signature, but sealed with grace. The blessing is not a prize for the flawless. It is a healing for the faithful. It is hope for the wounded. It is light for the path ahead, even if you've been walking in the dark for a long time. Let it reach you. Let your heart, even if it feels fragile, be willing to open just a little. Not to strive or to prove anything, but simply to receive. That is all that's being asked of you now. To receive. To believe that your name matters in heaven. That your story is still unfolding. That your faith, even when shaken, has never gone unnoticed. The man who once didn't understand now sees fully. His soul rests in light, and the last thing he gave this world was a gift for you. Not of money, not of possessions, but of meaning. He left behind a legacy of recognition, not for what you gave him, but for the way you pointed him, even quietly, toward Jesus. And now, heaven continues that legacy by pouring back into your life. Not because you asked, but because you were faithful. Not because you were perfect, but because your love reflected Christ, even in your weakness. That is what matters most in the kingdom of God. That is what endures. So now, as this blessing begins to fill your life, little by little, gently and steadily, may you remember, this is not the end. This is not the closing chapter. This is the turning of the page toward something softer, something deeper, something full of light. And though your hands may be trembling, and your heart may be cautious, the one who formed you from dust and breathed life into your soul is holding you steady. He is not done writing your story. He is not done loving you. He is not done leading you toward beauty that will not fade. Archangel Michael says, "The blessing you carry, this holy gift spoken through the lips of a man in his final breath, is no longer just waiting at your doorstep, it is already unfolding around you, woven into the very air you breathe, filling spaces you once thought were empty forever." Type 1515 to receive peace in your soul. You may not feel it all at once. It may not arrive in grand displays or loud miracles. But in the hush of ordinary moments, you'll start to notice something shifting. A heaviness lifting from your shoulders. A quiet joy rising from places where sadness once lived. The blessing is gentle, because God is gentle. It doesn't force its way in, it invites, it embraces, it waits for you to open your heart just a little more each day. And as you do, something begins to awaken in you. A remembering. A realization that you were never forgotten. That your quiet love, your uncelebrated kindness, your stubborn hope through years of silence and hardship, those were not wasted. They were seeds. And now, heaven is sending the rain. This story that began with a millionaire's final words is not really about money. It never was. It's about the weight of love. It's about the value of a soul. It's about how a single act of compassion, no matter how small, can reach beyond time and change the shape of eternity. You offered something he could not buy, a moment of light, of patience, of real care. That moment stayed with him, even when he forgot how to speak it. And when the end came, it was the only thing that mattered. So he gave it back to you. Not as a repayment, but as a release. As a holy echo. As one final act of gratitude. And heaven took that offering and turned it into something more, a blessing not just for comfort, but for healing, for restoration, for purpose. Now, the blessing that carries your name is not only about what is being given, but also about what is being restored. The places in your life that feel barren. The dreams you quietly buried. The strength you thought was gone. All of it is being renewed by the love of Jesus, who has never once stopped watching over you. He has waited with infinite patience for this moment, not to punish or correct you, but to comfort you. To lift your face. To call you beloved. What if the fastest path to wealth was already inside your mind, waiting to be activated by a powerful sound wave? Scientists call it the money-attracting frequency, and once awakened, it begins drawing opportunities, success, and financial freedom like never before. Imagine the relief of no more bills and the joy of living your dreams. This is more than an offer, it is a divine turning point. Your destiny is waiting, but only if you choose to move now. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on this ancient brain wave today. You may still feel unsure. You may look around and see the same struggles, the same long days, the same unanswered questions. But look closer. Look gently. There are signs now, tiny, quiet, beautiful signs that God is moving. A breath of peace in the middle of your fear. A soft tug in your spirit reminding you to hope again. A door opening in a place you thought was locked forever. These are not accidents. They are grace. This blessing is not a rescue from pain, but a redemption of it. It does not erase your past, it transforms it. Every loss, every disappointment, every broken chapter is being rewritten with the ink of mercy. God doesn't throw away broken things. He cradles them. He fills the cracks with light. He makes them part of a story that brings healing to others. You are part of that story. And you don't have to understand it all right now. You don't have to feel strong every day. You don't even have to know what's coming next. All you need to do is let your heart stay open to Jesus, because He is already near. He is not behind you, where the pain is. He is in front of you, where the healing begins. Type 666 if you believe in God's grace. Let yourself believe again. Not in people. Not in promises made and broken. But in the God who has never lied. Who has never left. Who has held your name close to His heart through every season, waiting for this one, this holy moment when your spirit is finally ready to receive the blessing that was always yours. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, the light that is touching your life now is not random, not fragile, and not fleeting. It is holy, it is lasting, and it was set into motion long ago by the one who sees your heart even when it is buried beneath pain, questions, and weariness." There is something sacred about how God moves, never rushed, never forced, yet always sure. In the spaces where you once only felt emptiness, His presence is beginning to grow like quiet roots beneath the surface, steady and unseen, yet stronger than anything the world could shake. The blessing that carries your name has begun to take shape not just around you but within you, and with every soft breath, your soul is starting to remember what it feels like to be held again. When the man spoke your name in his final breath, it wasn't just a reflection of the past. It was a release. It was as if his soul, finally stripped of all distractions, reached for the one thing that ever felt real: love. And not just any love, but the kind that came through you. The kind that didn't need to be loud or perfect to be powerful. The kind that came from Jesus and quietly passed through your words, your kindness, your patience. The kind that never left him. And now, that same love is being returned to you, but not by man. By heaven. The blessing is not a transaction. It's not a trade. It's a recognition. It's a response to what God already placed inside you, the faith you've carried even when you felt like you were walking in the dark, the strength you used to hold others even when you were the one breaking inside, the simple moments when you chose mercy instead of resentment. Heaven sees all of it. You may wonder how something so quiet could ever change anything. But that is how God often works. Not through noise, but through stillness. Not through force, but through presence. Jesus doesn't come rushing in with 1,000 answers. He comes and sits beside you, heart to heart, and stays. He stays through the grief. Through the waiting. Through the moments you can't even put into words. And from that place of togetherness, he begins to rebuild what was lost. That's where this blessing begins, in the rebuilding. Not just of your circumstances, but of your trust. Of your inner peace. Of your joy. What once felt like a season of silence is now beginning to bloom with purpose. What was once buried by sorrow is now rising in light. You may not feel ready, but God says you are. You may still feel bruised, but God says you're beloved. There is no part of your story that He will waste. Not one chapter, not one ache, not one broken dream. He is the God who restores, not by taking you back to who you used to be, but by leading you forward into who you were always meant to become. And that person is still rising within you. The blessing with your name on it is not just about receiving something new, it is about remembering who you are. You were never invisible to heaven. Even in the hardest seasons, when your prayers felt like they vanished into the air, your voice was heard. Not one word was ignored. Not one tear was overlooked. And now, heaven answers not only with comfort, but with restoration. Type 1919 to embrace healing. You don't have to strive. You don't have to prove anything. This blessing is not something you must chase, it's something you're being invited to open. And when you do, when you let your soul say yes, even with trembling hands, you'll begin to see the threads of God's love woven through everything. This is not about suddenly being free of pain. This is about knowing you are no longer carrying it alone. This is not about everything changing overnight. This is about knowing that Jesus walks with you through the slow and sacred process of becoming whole again. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are loved, deeply, wildly, unconditionally loved. And the blessing, the one that was spoken over your life by a man redeemed in his final breath, is not disappearing. It is unfolding, at the pace your heart can bear, with the gentleness your soul needs, and with the fullness that only heaven can give. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, the blessing that carries your name continues to unfold like a soft river flowing through a dry land, not to overwhelm you, but to fill the cracks of all that life once left empty, bringing back to life every place that quietly waited to be healed. This is not just a moment in your life, it is a turning of seasons, a shift in the unseen, a gentle invitation into something deeper than anything the world has offered. You may not see everything with your eyes yet, but your spirit feels it. There is a stirring, a warmth, a quiet knowing rising from within. That is the voice of God whispering, "You have not been forgotten. I have not left. This blessing has waited long enough, and now it is yours." When the man, in the last fragile minutes of his earthly life, whispered your name into the silence, the heavens listened. Not because of who he was, or what he had owned, but because the name he spoke was one God had already written in his heart. Yours. A name tied to kindness. A name tied to truth. A name tied to the love of Christ that had once touched him through your life, even when you didn't realize it. And that moment, as small as it may have seemed on earth, caused a movement in heaven. The kind of movement that only love can create. So much in this world can feel loud and fast, pulling you in every direction, convincing you that what matters most is always just out of reach. But here, in this sacred space where God is meeting you now, there is peace. There is no rush. No performance. Only presence. A love that holds you without asking anything in return. A love that sees the parts of your soul no one else ever noticed. A love that remembers every prayer you whispered when your voice was tired and your faith was quiet. This blessing is not something to be earned, it's something to be received. And it has come at just the right time. Not late. Not early. But at the exact moment when your heart, even if it doesn't fully understand, is most ready to soften again. To trust again. To open. Type 1010 if you trust in God's timing. What you may have lost in one season is not lost forever. What was delayed is not denied. What felt impossible is now becoming real, not because you found the strength to make it happen, but because Jesus never stopped moving toward you, even when you stood still. He has seen the way you stayed faithful, even in your pain. He has watched you love others quietly, even when your own heart was breaking. He has walked beside you through valleys no one else understood, whispering strength into your spirit when you felt too tired to go on. And now, He brings this blessing, not as a reward, but as a comfort. As a confirmation. As a sign that His promises are still alive and still for you. What if 7 minutes could rewrite your financial future forever? This hidden frequency, backed by neuroscience, flips the brain's natural wealth switch, unleashing unstoppable prosperity. People are calling it the money magnet sound, and it's already transforming lives. But hesitation means missing out while others move ahead. This is your moment to act. Click the link in the video description and comments below to awaken the wealth inside you today before the chance slips away. You may not know what this blessing will look like on the outside. It might arrive in small miracles first, a phone call that brings healing, a moment of laughter after a long silence, an unexpected answer to a prayer you almost stopped praying. Or it might be something unseen for a while, a peace that anchors you, a warmth in your chest that never leaves, a clarity that helps you finally release the weight you've been carrying. Whatever form it takes, it will come with the unmistakable presence of Jesus. Not because you chased after it, but because you stayed close to him, even when your heart felt uncertain. You held on, not always perfectly, but always sincerely. And that is all he ever asked of you. So take a deep breath. Let go of the fear that tells you this will slip away. It won't. Let go of the guilt that tells you you're not ready. You are. Let go of the doubt that says this was meant for someone else. It was always meant for you. The light that's growing around you is real. The healing that's beginning in your spirit is lasting. And the blessing spoken over your life carries the fingerprints of heaven itself. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, the blessing that carries your name is now resting upon your life like the early morning sun after a long, cold night, not shouting, not rushing, just gently warming what had grown numb, quietly calling you back to life, back to love, back to God." There is a kind of love that speaks louder than any voice, yet it whispers. It doesn't demand attention, but it fills the silence. It doesn't force itself into your story, but it finds its way into the empty spaces and begins to build again, brick by brick, breath by breath. That is the kind of love that surrounds you now. The love of Jesus, constant and kind, reaching into places you may have kept hidden, not to expose or shame you, but to lift you up and remind you that nothing about you was ever too broken to be healed. When the man, nearing the end of his days, let go of everything he once clung to, he realized something most never say aloud. He realized that the greatest riches in life were not stored in banks or written in contracts, but carried in the hearts of people who had loved without needing to be loved back. And among the names that rose in his spirit, it was yours that surfaced first, not because you asked for it, but because you gave something long ago that planted a seed he didn't know would bloom in his final hours. Type 1414 to step into divine protection. You showed him the kind of grace that doesn't need recognition. A grace that stands quietly in the background, yet changes everything it touches. You may not even remember the moment. It might have seemed small to you, an act of kindness, a word of encouragement, a gesture of patience. But to a soul that was lost, it was light. And now, that light is returning to you, not in the same form, but in a fuller, deeper way. Heaven has sent back to you what you once gave out freely: healing, comfort, favor, and peace. This is not coincidence. This is restoration. God does not forget what we forget. He does not overlook what the world ignores. He remembers everything done in love. And even when your life has felt quiet, even when it seemed like your giving went unnoticed, the angels were watching. The Spirit of God was collecting every quiet act, every prayer, every sigh you turned into surrender. And now, they are being returned to you, not just as comfort, but as promise. You may feel unworthy. You may still carry the ache of past mistakes or missed opportunities. But God never asked you to be perfect. He only asked you to keep walking toward Him, even when you didn't know where the path would lead. You have done that, again and again, and now heaven responds. This blessing does not erase your past. It transforms it. This love does not pretend the pain never happened. It enters the pain and stays with you until it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. This gift does not replace what was lost, it brings purpose to what remained. And though you may not see the full picture now, it's coming into view. The moments of stillness are beginning to feel more peaceful. The days that once dragged now carry a quiet sense of hope. The dreams that felt buried are starting to stir beneath the surface again. This is what grace looks like when it's growing. It's not loud, but it's real. It's not fast, but it's steady. And it never lets go once it finds you. You don't have to make sense of everything right now. You don't have to fix what you don't understand. All that's being asked of you in this moment is to receive, to let your soul soften, to let your walls lower, to let your hands open just enough to feel the presence of God resting in your life once more. You are not just loved. You are being rebuilt. You are being reawakened to the truth that God is still writing your story, and this chapter is holy. It carries the echoes of heaven, the faithfulness of Christ, and the soft, steady voice that says you are still meant for joy. The blessing hasn't passed you by. It was waiting for your heart to be ready to hold it. And now it's here. Not tomorrow. Not in a far-off future. Now. Rest in that. Let yourself be held. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, this blessing that carries your name is not something distant or unreachable. It is already in motion, moving through your life like a quiet river of mercy, washing over old wounds, softening the hardened places, and reminding your spirit of everything God has not forgotten." Type 1212 if you believe God is guiding you. The world teaches you to measure your worth by what can be seen, achievements, possessions, status, applause, but heaven does not measure like the world does. God looks at the heart, and when He looks at yours, He sees something beautiful. Not because it's flawless, but because it still beats with hope, even after everything. Because it still reaches for Him in the quiet, even when no one else knows. That kind of heart is rare. And that kind of heart draws the blessing now unfolding around you. The man who spoke your name before stepping into eternity didn't realize until the end what truly mattered. His wealth had once made him feel powerful, but in the stillness of his final moments, only love remained. The memory of a kindness, the trace of grace in someone's eyes, the quiet courage of one soul who had once made him feel human when everything else in his life felt empty. That soul was you. You gave something no amount of riches could replace. You gave truth without expecting anything in return. You gave patience when you had little to spare. You gave space for someone else to be seen, even when you were overlooked. And in doing so, you became a vessel of Christ's love. That kind of love leaves a mark, not just on people, but on eternity. God never loses track of that kind of love. This blessing is not a reward. It is a continuation. A next chapter in a story you began living long ago, sometimes without even realizing. Every moment you showed compassion, every time you forgave when it would have been easier to harden, every tear you offered to God in surrender instead of anger, it was all leading here. And now, you are beginning to feel the shift. Not always in big, visible ways. Sometimes in how the burden feels a little lighter when you wake up. Sometimes in how the silence no longer feels empty but peaceful. Sometimes in how your breath feels deeper, your heart softer, your thoughts more hopeful. These are not small things. These are signs of the blessing settling into your life, not to take over, but to stay.